We're getting ready to have a great conversation about Job Corps. So Job Corps is gone. Where do we go from here? So come on in. I'm gonna have my brother, Mr. Marcus Cage, have a conversation with us. Marcus Cage is a colleague of mine, great friend of mine, a brother of mine. He is the co-creator of Potential. He is an educational consultant. He is an independent mentor. And he also used to work at Job Corps for several years. So I'm very interested in seeing what his perspective is on this whole situation. So as soon as he's able to hop on in, we're going to get started. But in the meantime, let me check in with you all. So my folks that's in the chat, let me know where you checking in from. Let me know where you checking in from. And also, too, let me know how you're feeling today on a scale from 1 to 10, y'all. How are we feeling today? And where are you checking in from? So, again, if you're just joining us, we're going to have a great conversation about Job Corps and where do we go from here. What's up, Lisa? What's up, Connecticut? And this is my first time hosting my own Substack Live. So hopefully we get this whole thing figured out correctly. What's up, Ma? Checking in from Matson. Everybody else, what's good? Where you checking in from? Where you checking in from? How you feeling? And you said you are feeling like a 7 today. I would give myself, I'm gonna say I'm at like a 8.5 today. Now we know there's a lot of chaos going on around the country right now. It seems like every day it's something new. Thankfully, I haven't come across anything so far today that's crazier than the last few days. But I will say that I have been I've been really taking into account my social media usage today. So I haven't been on there as much. I've posted some stuff and I've just kind of left because I'm really trying to just focus on what's ahead of us right now. So shout out to a Princess in San Francisco. Lisa says she's a 7. Princess is a 9.75. I love that. I love to hear that. Jerome said North Carolina. Happy belated birthday to you. Happy belated birthday to you. I love that. I love that. So look, y'all, as I figure this out, this is my first time hosting a live. I'm fairly new to Substack, but I'm loving it so far. I'm trying to figure out what I want to call this, what my newsletter's going to be, what this video is going to be, maybe an eventual podcast. And I think for the time being, we're going to call this Crims Class, y'all. This is going to be called Crims Class. And on here, we will explore untold history, particularly Black history. We'll explore racial justice and we'll explore the power of education to transform lives, y'all. And the conversation that we're having today is going to be about Job Corps. Now, the thing about Job Corps is, I think it's important for us to first establish that Job Corps came from the 1960s, okay? Now, anything in American history that benefited people that came from any time between the mid to late 50s through the 70s, you can say if it was for the greater good of American people, that it was created within a broader context of the civil rights movement. And that's what we have with Job Corps. Job Corps was established in 1964 as a part of President LBJ's War on Poverty through the Economic Opportunity Act. So this is important to understand, y'all, like I said, because the fact that it was created in the 1960s, right? 1964 to be exact, with the Economic Opportunity Act lets you know what the broader context of that was. So we understand prominent figures like Dr. King, of course, who is often viewed as the forerunner, the leader of this movement. But we're talking hundreds of people, thousands of people in various cities who are putting pressure on the government to provide for people. Now, of course, we know that now here's what's interesting to me about Job Corps. We understand that it was needed to help provide for our kids who might not fit into the school system, kids who want to do more hands-on education, right? But you know, in this country, you cannot just straight up say that this is going to be for Black people. Because if you create something that's specifically for us in the title, even though we were specifically targeted for injustices here, it will be viewed as unconstitutional. So this is something that was all encompassing. And I think what's interesting about this is something that was primarily, it says, for low income students, right? Low income students between 16 and 24, which means, because we ain't the only ones that can fit within low income, statistically speaking, numerically, right? Quantitatively as a whole, there are more poor white people in this country than any other group of people, right? So even though you have some folks during that time who are adamantly against what we were fighting for at that time, they still benefited from what we were fighting for, and we got successfully. Because as a part of civil rights demonstrations and activism, you also have to have some type of economic stability as well. So that comes from that time period. And I was talking on Word Radio in Philadelphia earlier today about this. And the point I wanted to make then, and the point I'm gonna make now is, y'all, when we talk about um presidents passing legislation, what's important for us to understand is that when presidents sign legislation for the greater good, it's most often not because they wanted to. It's most often not because they woke up and out of the goodness of their heart decided to do something for all of us, to help us persevere, to help us strive and move forward in this society. When you look at those pictures of LBJ and you see him signing those documents, I challenge anybody to look up those pictures. You often see a crowd of civil rights leaders around him, more prominently folks like Dr. King, of course. Now we know with any form of legislation too, you're going to see a crowd of people if it's monumental. And the reason why you see that is these are the people who were on the front lines advocating to ensure that that legislation was passed. Without the groundswell of grassroots activism and without the people who are putting pressure on all levels of government, local government, right? So city, county government, state governments, we don't get Job Corps, which, remember, was not a singular act. It was a part of the Economic Opportunity Act. And this was actually modeled after something FDR did during the New Deal era. It was modeled after the Civilian Conservation Corps. So this was something that was created to help us get out of the Great Depression. But remember, even then, FDR was challenged and forced to do what he did. The first Job Corps Center opened in 1965 in Custer, Colorado. That was the first one. And over the course of time, it ballooned to 120 different centers, run by, of course, the U.S. Department of Labor. In 1965, and of course, what also comes from 1965, the Voting Rights Act. So we see all of this prominent legislation. Remember, the Black-led civil rights movement was so effective that there was legislation passed for all different types of people. It wasn't just Black people who benefit. And this is why I always say it is so important to explicitly say that we are advocating for Black folks, y'all. When you advocate for Black folks, the entire country is going to benefit. All people will benefit, because even what we deal with in this country now and what we dealt with then is usually not just specific to us. Even racism harms all groups of people. Our country cannot flourish economically unless all people are able to come as their full selves. There are studies done by banks that prove that our government, our economy is missing out on trillions of dollars, because they have not sought to proactively solve this systemic racism issue. So this is something that's for everybody. And I see Brother Jackson Marshall said Job Corps saved his life. Literally, it needs to, yeah, brother. It, like, when you think about what it does, and hopefully, Mr. Cage is able to hop on here because he can speak from this firsthand experience. But but I know, just as someone who had students who maybe didn't fit into the traditional education setting, I know that Job Corps became another option, a pathway for them. Because I can tell you, as someone who taught in low income schools for his entire career, What happens is, let's first off be honest. A so-called traditional school setting honestly isn't best for most students. I would argue it's not best for most students. Why? Because our kids are not supposed to be sitting down an entire day in order for them to learn. That is not the most productive way for anyone to learn. But we reward students who are able to sit down, take instruction silently, right? No objections, because you might be labeled as a problem child. You might get sent to special ed, right? Which was primarily created to push us off to the side. So most students don't necessarily fit that mold. So by the time these kids are 16, these are the Job Corps students. These are the students who are adamantly saying, I don't fit this mold. Some kids will just kind of sit. They'll just sit and persist, right? And deal with the failure of the education system we have, being quite honest with you. Others will be more adamant about their disapproval, and they'll drop out. So these kids might get referred, these kids might drop out and then sign up, but we have to think about the pathways that exist. When we talk about the school to prison pipeline or the school to prison nexus, what that means is if you do not follow this stream, then you're going to be pushed down this pipeline that takes you directly to prison. Job Corps functioned as a buffer. And as someone who spent his first 2 years teaching at a alternative school, that was also a buffer for kids. Not one that was as effective as a Job Corps, but it was a place kids could go before they were kicked out, before they maybe went to juvenile detention center, or before they were dealing with our justice or injustice system, I should say. The great thing about Job Corps was it didn't just teach kids skills they needed to get jobs, right? The different trades they offered. But what was profound about it was it also offered them a way to live in an environment amongst other people who were dealing with the same things, but also two adults who were there from the community that were concerned about their well-being. It's in some ways like a boarding school. You're living there. You have housing taken care of. You got food taken care of. It's a way to help you adjust to society. It's a way to help you honestly provide for your community and for yourself. Because what's interesting now is when we talk about where we are now, there's a lack of children going into trades. So this was a way for them to get active and get involved. And then when you have these trades at your disposal, especially in Black communities, it means that you're more self-sufficient. One of the other issues I found as a public teacher is we operated off this paradigm that every student should be going to a 4-year school or university. And that's problematic because what we also learn in education, school, as we get ready to teach, is that there are various different types of intelligences. Shout out to Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. But we only teach our kids in one way, right? And I'm actually searching it right now so I can name all of them for you. So I want you to be able to join. I'm sorry, I want you to be able to list these because also if you have kids, you want to be thinking about this. And even if you don't have your own kids, you are in a community where children are nearby, I'm sure, right? So look, when we talk about our children have spatial intelligence, right? Visualizing the world in 3D movement. We have kids who have linguistic intelligence. They're able to find the right words to express what they mean. We have children who have intrapersonal intelligence. They have a profound understanding of themselves and what they feel and what they want. Those might be the kids who we label as demanding because they know what they need and want in a particular moment. There are kids who have interpersonal intelligence. They sense people's feelings and motives. And maybe sometimes they call you out. Maybe sometimes they call the teacher out. You get in trouble for it. We have kids who have the logical, mathematical intelligence. So they're able to quantify things and make hypotheses and prove them. So they'll excel in the math and science classes. We have kids who have musical intelligence. So they're able to discern sound, the pitch, tone, rhythm, kinesthetic or bodily intelligence, coordinating their mind with their body. Think about how school actually teaches to that. How many different types of intelligences do kids get to activate throughout a traditional school day? If we're talking about bodily, there's one class for that. That's PE. But if that's your level of it, if that's how you most excel, and you only get that outlet once a day, then how does that benefit you? Right? Your logical mathematic, right? So you're able to sit still and focus on the logical sequence of things. So we have to be real about that. And we were under the as teachers, our idea, and even me, every single subject of teachers had to essentially do this. We had to say, yo, okay, no matter what subject I'm teaching, no matter how I view these kids and their strengths and weaknesses, I have to make sure that they are quote unquote college ready. Now, what does that actually mean, right? Again, not every child that we teach is going to excel or wants to go to excel in a traditional college setting. That does not mean that they are not fitted for greatness throughout their life and to be successful. Job Corps provided that other pathway and opportunity. That does not mean it was perfect. None of these systems are. Again, public education is far from perfect, but it's to say that, look, you can go here and excel as well. Now, what are we missing without Job Corps? We're missing the fact that kids had access to over 100 trades, hands-on training, right? They had career counseling and job placement opportunities. They had life skills development. Like I said before, safe housing, food, access to healthcare, career training, and some of the trades they can get certified in. We're talking healthcare industries, construction industries, information technology, culinary arts, automotive repair, right? Driver's license assistance. They get job placement services. These are all now, and here's why this is so great as someone who taught in a traditional public school setting. Because as educators and counselors and deans, we don't have the bandwidth to provide all of that to the kids who need it on a consistent basis. I think that we truly, honestly, I think we devalue what was fought for in that previous generation and how we benefit from it. I don't think we truly realize how much they were able to accomplish politically back then and how much we are able to benefit from it today. This is why history is so important. And it's not just history, because when we talk about history, everything from the past, right, can be viewed through that. But we're talking about the perspective and narrative that we're taught. We are traditionally taught history from the perspective of Eurocentrism, American exceptionalism, through a patriotic lens, through a colonial lens, through an anti-Black, anti-Indigenous lens, through a anti-anything that's not white and wealthy lens. That means that when you are studying history and being taught history in school, that you are viewing the world through someone else's eyes that are not your own. Meaning that this is how this particular person, this particular group wants to see the world. Although it might not truly be that way for most people, that's how they want to see it. They put those glasses on you from first through 12th grade to view the world. When I used to teach history in class, right, we focus on the civil rights movement briefly, but we're not breaking it down like this. We're not breaking it down to see, like, look, this is why history matters, and this is why voting matters. And I think we're getting a crash course on that right now. Because when we say voting matters, people don't really understand what we mean. Well, if I was in the classroom now, it would be easy to explain. Just from when Trump took office to now, I could easily explain why voting matters on all levels of government. Sometimes it could have been difficult to explain on a federal level, because you don't often see the immediate benefits or negative consequences of what someone does. But if you live in a community like I do that has Job Corps, in fact, our Job Corps was a former high school building that was closed down due to low enrollment. So now, where are those kids going? Where are those educators and teachers going? I was seeing post after post of educator who was disheartened because of what happened. Right now, you don't have a job, right? And then you think about the kids they were serving to. Where did they go? I was watching a video from Little Rock, Arkansas, and one of the educators was saying they're going to have to help some of those kids get into shelters now. This is, again, one of the issues of not teaching history from a through a transformative progressive lens, or as I would say, truthfully, an Afrocentric lens, because as you teach it from an Afrocentric lens, you're already landing on that progressive side of history, because that's what our existence in this nation has been, one that has challenged these institutions because of our persistent advocacy, right? And we know, of course, there have been other groups who have joined us, but due to what we experience and how we internalize that, we helped create this uh, semblance of a democracy. I can't fully say it's a democracy, but there are aspects of it that are democratic. We know we had a democratic republic, but also too, especially on a federal level, we have what is called an oligarchy. That means a government that is ruled by a few people, right? And I'm saying this, y'all, because if we are able to teach our kids history if we start with the end point saying we want our children to be aware of the injustices in society that exist today and how people have fought against them in the past, successfully and maybe sometimes unsuccessfully, we would land in a place where we are aware of Job Corps, where we are aware of the urgency of elections like the last one. Because regardless of what's happening right now, if we don't continue to inform people of the honestly the tragedies that we are constantly experiencing due to President Trump on a daily basis, by the time there's another election, and if another person with the same ideology like him runs, or if he does something to undo the 22nd Amendment so he can run again, people will go right back to voting for this same person. Because to me, we land here because we have a short term memory. We land here because people forgot about what happened from 2016 to 2020. How? It boggles the mind, but we have to understand that most of us in this country, myself included, have not been taught history in a proper manner unless you are proactive in unlearning these things you were taught and learning the appropriate way moving forward. And it's through that you'll figure out too, because whenever we see these things get undone, we should also ask, where did it come from? Right? We should ask, how did it come from that era? Why did it come from that era? All these things here are undoing. He's undoing. He's trying to defund Medicaid. That comes from the 60s too. He's trying to defund SNAP. That comes from the 60s too. He's also trying to increase funding for ICE, police officers. Where did ICE come from? George Bush, not the 60s. That came from George W. Bush after 9/11 to increase border patrol security. Right? We were protesting for a summer demanding that you defund the police and give these resources to services like Medicaid, like SNAP, like Job Corps. 5 years later, we have a president who's defunding the things we needed for our livelihood. Think about that. All people were simply asking and demanding was to pull those resources away. They weren't even, most protesters weren't even talking about abolishing. They were saying pull some of those resources away and then give them to social service agencies. We cannot forget 5 years later, now they're defunding education programs. Nobody ever makes a big deal out of defunding school, defunding education programs, defunding healthcare, defunding food for kids. These are ways you kill people. Like there was literally a politician. I can't remember her name right now, but someone brought that to the table at a town hall meeting and said this policy is going to kill people. And she said something to the effect of everybody's going to die. We are dealing with folks who are absolutely heartless, y'all. So during this time period, not only, of course, is there a LBJ or MLK, we got to also be aware of the fact that we have people who aren't discussed enough, like Whitney Young. Whitney Young, during the 60s, was the head of the National Urban League, and he strongly advocated for government investment in workforce training for Black youth. Because the thing is, with all of these great programs, we have to also have people at the table who demand our inclusion in these programs. Otherwise, they'll pass legislation that's for low income and it will only focus on white folks. Or, because we know what this is, when they talk about working class people, we know what they mean subliminally. No, we got people in the working class too. And within our demographic, there's a higher percentage of us. So Whitney Young made sure that we were included. Whitney Young, who most folks will know as the name of one of the most prestigious high schools in Chicago, in the state of Illinois. There's also Bayard Rustin, who was an advisor to Dr. King, who viewed Bayard Rustin, who was an advisor to King, viewed federal job training as essential to civil rights and economic justice. Bayard Rustin, put some respect on his name. Watch that not documentary. Watch the movie on Netflix if you haven't. Happy Pride Month to my folks who are in the Q plus community. Bayard Rustin was, right? Bayard Rustin was in the trenches, not just in the 60s, not just by helping plan the March on Washington, but also in the 40s. He was going to plan another demonstration then with A. Philip Randolph until FDR was like, all right, nah, let's figure this out because I don't want y'all doing this on my watch. 20 years later, he's still organizing. He's still making sure his voice is heard so that we have inclusion in something like this. We also know the NAACP, the National Urban League, right? All of these folks, these organizations are advocating for Job Corps. I bring all this up so that we understand that moving forward, when we think about what replaces Job Corps, we simply have to look at ourselves and say, well, what can we do to I mean, maybe it comes back with another president, but what can we do to mirror that? We have to remember that Job Corps consisted of people that came to the table. These weren't federal government employees that were flown in. Did nobody get flown in? These were folks in the community that said, that's a job description I can have to help people. Those people still exist right now. So to me, that means in the meantime, we have to find some type of structure that they can work under in a similar fashion. If I'm talking about they're providing trades, right, apprenticeships and training, well, we have to think about, well, who in our community is an electrician, is a plumber, is a welder, is a carpenter? Who do we know, right? We need to appoint them and assign them to kids who need that type of training. This means we have to be way more responsible for our community than we have been. And look, y'all, being real, prior to Job Corps, it would have meant that we already knew we had to be more hands-on. Job Corps was great, but also too, if we go a completely different generation without realizing the benefit of Job Corps and why we even have such a program, then we forget that we have to renew that social contract each generation. That's even to me the idea behind Juneteenth for us. Why is Juneteenth important? I think it's important for one because it reminds us that we have to renew that commitment to freedom and liberation every generation. If we don't know what we went through to get it then, we'll go back there willingly. So people like Whitney Young, that's us. People like Bayard Rustin, that's us. The NAACP, they got chapters everywhere. That's us. People who worked at Job Corps, that's us. We can provide these types of services. It doesn't mean we don't need the help or the structure or the funding. Yeah, we do. We do. And we got to be real aggressive on the ask we have from local governments, state governments, the people in our community that have a tremendous amount of wealth, especially if you live in a large urban center. You got some alumni from some of these schools out here, folks that are multi-millionaires, folks who are, well known for the wealth that they're creating that was in part built off a foundation of the community they came from. There needs to be a commitment. There needs to be some type of commitment to investing in organizations and nonprofits and churches that are committed to doing this because they already exist. They already exist. Prior to this happening, there were nonprofits. There were churches doing this type of work. So hopefully this shines a light on just how effective that pre-existing work was so that they can get some more attention and some more funding. And as I'm looking at some stats right here, I think it's important to highlight just the impact of Job Corps over the course of time. I don't think my brother gonna make it on. I don't think he was able to sign on, my brother Mr. Cade. So I'm gonna just go ahead and continue with this conversation. So since its founding in 1964, Job Corps has served over 2.6 million young people across the country. Each year, they serve between 35,000 and 50,000 people. Now, even prior to this, those numbers were getting smaller due to budget cuts, due to pandemic related disruptions, too. There's an estimate that about 72 to 75% of graduates are placed in either jobs, college, or military service. These kids, these young adults are leaving here mostly with a plan moving forward. And that's also one of the critiques we often have about public school. Because we'll say, well, where are the trades programs? Or how is it that our kids can graduate at 18 and they don't know how to write a check or open a bank account or do their taxes, start a business if they wanted to? This was an opportunity to circumvent that. So here's my challenge then to you all before I reveal some resources I'm aware of and before I get out of here. My challenge to you all is let's all in our local communities, let me know where y'all chiming in from again, or maybe even like the closest large city, if that helps. We need to begin to think about what are the issues and problems that exist within our immediate communities for our youth. What are the barriers, right? What don't we have enough of that we need? If we were to say we need more social service programs or we need more therapists, mental health, we need more healthy eating options, or we need more landscapers, more plumbers. We have to look at this from, okay, this is where the problem is at the top. The solution to that rests, of course, in what we're doing in our households. We can't control that. So it rests in what we do in our schools. If it's not being done in the school system, then we provide programming and services around that, or we find a way to get inside that school to do mentoring programs. Let's think about who the number one employer is in your city, in your town, where Job Corps was. Is that number one employer paying a living wage for our people? In some of our communities, one of the top one, two, or three employers might be the local prison, might be the local jail. And we don't want to prepare our students to be guards for that. Let's be real. We don't want to feed that prison industrial complex, although there might be great benefits, I'm sure. There's a lot of money invested in that. Because at the same time they're closing down Job Corps, they ain't closing down these jails and prisons. They're privatizing more of them and allowing us to invest in the imprisonment or the reenslavement of our people. So, what is the problem that exists? Job Corps was one of the solutions, not the, but one of the solutions. And we start at a local level, neighborhood level, always. So, okay, we got to be able to make to marry the issues we see with people who are already doing the work. All right. So if one of the issues is we don't have enough, let's say, black carpenters, I'm throwing out something, and you know of youth who want to be engaged and want to be a carpenter, and you know a carpenter yourself, you serve as the medium. That's what I like to do as an educator. I want to connect people because as a educator for 12 years, I brought in countless guest speakers. I was making connections, and whenever I would make a connection in the community, my next question was, "Can you speak to my kids? Can you speak to my Black Student Union kids? Can you mentor somebody?" Right? We got like sometimes our role in this is just being the vessel or being the conduit, the medium. We don't have to be the student. We don't have to be the teacher. We can be sometimes in the middle. Hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. So if we know the carpenter and we know kids who want to do it, then we connect them. If we know folks who are in construction and we have kids that want to go into it, we connect them. Because being real, in my mind, like, I'm an educator, I'm a speaker, writer, all this stuff. I can't even wrap my mind around what construction work entails. I just get like, I see them out there every day. I'm getting sick of them. I ain't gonna lie. I know you are too. It's always a delay. But when the finished product is done, it looks amazing. And I'm not sure what they had, the type of schooling they went through. I would probably fail out of it. But we have kids who want to do that type of work, and they should have the ability to. So if we know some folks, let's connect them. And look, y'all, look. If we don't, they on every corner. Go ask somebody. Go ask them. Go ask them. And this would also be a great opportunity for us to teach our kids those soft skills that they are sorely lacking in this generation. They know how to text, send emojis, and do all these dances, but can they introduce themselves and network with professionals? Can they ask for a business card? Do they know how to follow up with that person? Do they know how to dress appropriately given the situation they're in? These are skills not just for the kids that are labeled as so-called at risk, but these are skills for all of our students. But for the purpose of Job Corps, we're looking proactively at the kids who may be on the margin of that school to prison pipeline or nexus and might not want to come back the next year. And we know that's more likely to happen when kids might not have that reinforcement at home. So that's my challenge to y'all. What connections can you make with our youth? And look, if you fit this description, if you are involved in trades and things like that, and you are doing well for yourself and able to provide for yourself, then my challenge then to you is, well, are you volunteering at a local school? Do you know the local school? Are you going on career days? I'm on several email lists for career day in my media community. I get emails all the time for Gary, Indiana. And in fact, I went to to the middle school one time this year to talk to kids. They got to be able to see us. They got to be able to see us, especially if we look like them and come from their background. But look, even if you don't and you still want to help, go into them schools and show these kids what you do. They need to be able to see that example, and to take it a step further would be, hey, you identify some kids that really want to do what you do, set up a program through the school, some type of internship. We can handle this and we can do it. We really also have to break down, and maybe I can find a way to get on this call again with Mr. Cage so he can break this down. We want to think about what the curriculum is. What was the curriculum that Job Corps had that made it effective? What was the curriculum? What did kids have to go through? We can mimic and we can mirror that. That's possible. So in closing though, y'all, I do want to give you a few resources that I was able to come across, but I do have to issue this caveat. Not every resource I'm gonna give you right now is available in every city. But the purpose of this is when I'm sharing it with you, you can look it up and get some ideas for what you can do. Okay. There's a program called Youth Build USA. They target low income children too, between 16 and 24. Interestingly enough, I saw that they were also part of the Department of Labor. Their program was not defunded. Look them up, see what they do. Maybe they're in your community. Maybe you can mirror them. There's another program called Perscholas, Perscholas. They provide free IT training for adults from underserved communities. All right, look them up. There is the Urban League Workforce Development Program. They offer training in high demand fields such as healthcare, tech, and trades. And according to what I'm looking at, this brief description, they have locations nationwide. That is Urban League Workforce Development Programs. All right. And I'm thinking maybe I'll share this on on my Substack newsletter. And again, too, I mentioned this on my Instagram, and I'll tell you all as well. If you are someone that's proactive and want to just promote the fact that you're willing to help folks in your immediate community, maybe even virtually, send me an email, info@ernestcram.com, or send me a message on Substack, respond to my newsletter, go to my website. There are so many ways to contact me. And if it's a serious inquiry, I will have my assistant get back to you. We're going to set up something. Let's not forget about job training at community colleges. And I say this in hopes that we don't lose funding for community colleges too. Let's be real, because that seems like something he would target too. But many states, many local communities offer tuition-free programs for career certifications. So check out your local community college, see if they have something in place that's tuition-free for our kids. We also have many print time and labor union programs. They provide paid internships in tech and trades. They target outreach to women, people of color, and veterans. All right. And then the last one I came across right now is called Tech Bridge. They focus on upskilling Black and Latino adults in the South. So for all my folks in the South, look up Tech Bridge, and that gives us another idea. So again, and also too, just put in a Google search. What are some alternatives to Job Corps in my immediate community, and see what pops up? There are options. The perspective I'm always giving people moving forward is quite simply, Harriet Tubman did not care who the president was. She was going to free herself and her people regardless. Harriet Tubman didn't wake up daily saying, dang, this president got elected. Oh my God, this president got elected. I can't do what I'm going to do now. No. Harriet was on the mission. I'm getting to free territory. And when I get there, I'm going to go back and get everybody else. I don't care, y'all, if it's Trump. I don't care if it's JD Vance. I don't care if we get some more Democrats. We got to keep our eye on the prize, because regardless of who's in office, there will be work to do. And they will only pass in legislation what we as the people demand in overwhelming numbers. So yeah, Job Corps is done, but that just means we're going to come to the table and create something better in each community. And at the same time, because we agitate and we create, we're going to continue to agitate the system, because we have seen countless times in a few months with this administration that when they do something mindless and foolish, which we have seen quite frequently, if the outcry is loud enough, they backtrack on it. So we still have the power. Let's always remember that. There's one president. He got a cabinet. There's what 535, congressional members in both of those chambers. There are 300 and some million of us. All right. Now we know half, they even the half that, or a little more than the half that wanted that guy in office. I think a lot of them are regretting it now. I truly believe we still have the numbers to make the change we desire and seek, but we got to be committed. We can't keep moving around with every news story. We got to make this is just an example of what we have to continually focus on for our people. So again, y'all, Harriet Tubman ain't care who the president was. So we shouldn't either. We're gonna keep working, we're gonna keep building, we're gonna keep finding ways to serve our people. With that said, I wish I could have brought on my brother Mr. Cage, but he had just signed up for Substack, so he probably couldn't figure it out. So we're gonna figure something else out. And if I'm able to have that conversation with him, because he was somebody who worked there for several years, has some tremendous insight on it, I'll be sure to share that with you all. But until then, thanks for tuning in to Crim's class, and I'll see you soon. Peace.